Thank you very much indeed for your comments. I was very struck by the statistics that you shared with us, which shows that we still have a long way to go if we want to fully implement the Resolution 1325. Let me now give the floor to our next speaker, Madame Lupel.
Great, thank you so much. Good morning. It's great to be here. It's been an extraordinary couple of days. Many thanks to the Council of Europe team for putting this all together. I don't know if you know, it's actually really quite a small team that actually does all this. It's an incredible job. So thank you so much, and thank you for your partnership with IPI. Let me just say at the start, we're sitting on a panel with 4 men and 2 women at a forum on gender equality is not ideal. In my view, I think it's really important to be crystal clear about the answer to the question posed: gender equality, whose battle? It's everyone's battle. So in my mind, it's critically important that men understand. This includes us, men. He for she is he for she for we. This is a universal agenda with profound consequences for all of humanity. And there is perhaps no issue where this becomes more clear in my mind than in relation to matters of peace and security, which will be the focus of my remarks. We've known about this connection from some time. It was just World War I was just mentioned, and I was reminded that in 1915, over 1,000 women gathered in The Hague to appeal for the end of World War I, and that was the beginning of the WILPF, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. So this has been women's involvement in peace issues has been happening for a long time. For better or for worse, it has now been 18 years since the Security Council formally made this link between gender equality and the maintenance of international peace and security. It's been mentioned numerous times. Research is clear. Women's security and gender dynamics are critical before, during, and after conflict. Before conflict, research has found that the very best predictor of a country's level of peace is not its economic status. It's not its level of democratization or its ethnic or religious identity. Rather, it is how well women are treated in that society. While we do not fully understand this complex relationship between gender and security, we do know there is a correlation between gender inequality and the occurrence and reoccurrence of armed conflict. And we know that during conflict, dangerous gender dynamics are pervasive. There is an increasing recognition of the particular violence that is used against women and girls in conflict zones as a byproduct and as an intentional weapon of war, including the use of sexual violence, as was recognized in this year's Nobel Peace Prize. And after conflict, or in the continuous process of making peace, the role of women and gender is critical. Researchers, policymakers, activists, and practitioners are increasingly recognizing the potential for societal transformation in efforts to create and sustain peace if only women are substantially engaged in these efforts. Some of the statistics were already mentioned, so I won't repeat them. We're short on time. But I think it's important to underline that women's participation in peace processes increases their chances of success. This is not just a matter of justice, it's a matter of effectiveness. Why? In part because if women are included, chances are the peace process is not just a negotiation about power among men with guns, but that it will include broader issues about how to build a sustainable, peaceful society. Inclusivity is the key here. So what should be done? IPI, International Peace Institute, where I am based, is an international independent nonprofit based in New York that works closely with the United Nations in supporting multilateral solutions to transnational problems. So our focus is indeed on the multilateral level. And unfortunately, while women and girls are far too often targeted for violence in armed conflict, they are simultaneously excluded from national and multilateral efforts to prevent, resolve, and rebuild from conflict. So simply what needs to be done, we need to systematically listen to women and girls, learn from their leadership, and ensure their voices are included in the prevention and resolution of conflict and in the building of peace after conflict. This can be done through formal processes like national action plans or commitments to parity, or through working to connect networks of women mediators to preventive processes. There are a number of extraordinary networks at the works that we've been working with, for example. In 2017, IPI founded a dedicated program on women, peace, and security to help support such efforts by the UN and member states. And this program is led by Dr. Sarah Taylor in seat number 55 over there. I want to call her out. Thank you, Sarah. I learned from your leadership. It is important to emphasize that there has been progress. Approaching 20 years since the adoption of Resolution 1325 and 25 years since the Beijing Fourth World Conference on Women, we can reflect on the fact that there has been some significant progress made globally on many aspects of women, peace, and security work, including political commitments to devote funding to increased women's leadership roles, which is extremely important. SDG 5 on gender equality has been mentioned. I think it's a genuine milestone, but it was also mentioned that implementation is the key. There are important challenges. Many commitments are not being implemented. So there is still a lot of work to be done, including in the crucial area of ensuring women's leadership at all levels and in all peace and security fora, including peace operations. IPI does a lot of work on peace operations and peace processes. And unfortunately, the data is not encouraging here. In 2015, the UN and member states were asked to double the number of women in military and police peacekeeping contingents by 2020. But at the current rate of change, that goal will actually take decades, by one measure even centuries. We can and must do better. As Rosemary McCartney said from this podium on Monday, we can't just wait to let nature take its course. Reform needs to be purposeful and deliberate, intentional and determined. So, we must recognize that we live at a moment of contradictory trends. This work does not happen in a vacuum. There are headwinds. We have forward, though insufficient, progress on women's rights and political participation at the same time as a rising and dangerous backlash in some quarters, which have the potential to send the world precipitously backward. Human rights in general are currently being challenged at the UN and the world over. This has been mentioned. At the UN, this often comes in the form of fight over funding of positions, and let me tell you, the squeeze is on. So, to conclude, call it a hinge moment of history. Call it a moment of both risks and opportunities, progress and backlash. Call it what you may, but make it a call for action. Leadership is critically important, both at the highest levels and at the grassroots. And so I come away from this to say that forums such as this, that bridge those communities and bring together the kind of people in this room and makes connections among the innovative works that you all are doing, fills me with hope and determined energy to go back home, back to New York, and push forward. And I think we all need a bit of that in these times, so thank you very much for your participation.